The first thing people noticed about the girl was the silence around her. Not because she was quiet, though she rarely spoke, but because everyone else deliberately avoided speaking to her. In the central chamber of the Interstellar Academy, thousands of students from hundreds of species gathered every cycle to eat, talk, and trade stories of their home worlds. The hall was massive, a shining dome of glass and alloy where artificial sunlight streamed through energy shields and reflected off polished metal floors. Voices echoed constantly, chirps, growls, melodic whistles, and translated speech humming through the universal translators worn by every student, except for one corner. There, at a long curved table near the wall, sat a single figure alone. Her name was Lyris Valka, though most people didn't bother remembering it. To them, she had another name, Unwanted. The label followed her everywhere. It was written in her digital student file, whispered in the corridors, and spoken with quiet discomfort by professors who wished they could pretend she wasn't enrolled at all. Lyris belonged to the Valkyrie, a species feared across several star systems. Valkyrie warriors were legendary, towering, powerful beings with silver-gray skin, faint glowing lines across their arms, and eyes like cold stars. Their civilization had once conquered dozens of worlds before collapsing under the weight of its own brutal hierarchy. Now the remaining Valkyrie were scattered refugees. Most species never forgot what the Valkyrie had once done. And Lyris was the daughter of the last Valkyrie warlord. Even worse, rumors said she had inherited his power. No one had ever confirmed it, but rumors were enough. So Lyris sat alone. Every day, every meal, at the edge of the hall. She ate slowly, eyes lowered, pretending she didn't notice the way others avoided her. Sometimes groups of students whispered as they passed. Sometimes they stared openly. Sometimes they simply left the area entirely. The Academy had admitted her as a political gesture, an attempt to prove that even the most feared species could be integrated into the galactic community. But no one had actually expected her to fit in, least of all Lyris herself. She had stopped hoping weeks ago, which was why, on an otherwise ordinary day, the moment it happened felt unreal. Someone sat down beside her. The sound of the chair sliding across the floor was loud enough to draw attention across the hall. Lyris froze. For a second, she assumed it was an accident. Maybe someone hadn't noticed who she was. Maybe they would stand up immediately once they realized. But the person didn't move. Instead, he placed a tray on the table and began eating like nothing unusual had happened. Lyris slowly turned her head. The student beside her was human. He looked completely normal by human standards, dark hair, average height, slightly tired eyes like someone who stayed up too late studying or fixing machines. He noticed her staring and gave a casual nod. Hey. Lyris blinked. No one had spoken to her that casually since arriving at the academy. You are aware who I am? She asked carefully. The human shrugged. Yeah. He took another bite of his food. And the simplicity of the response confused her. You should not sit here, she said quietly. Others will assume. That I don't care? He interrupted. Because I don't. He extended a hand. Name's Adrian Cole. She stared at his hand for a moment, as if it were something dangerous. Finally, she said, Lyris Valka. Adrian nodded. Nice to meet you. Across the hall, conversations had begun to quiet. Dozens of eyes were watching now. Everyone noticed. No one could believe it. A human, one of the youngest species in the galactic community, had just sat beside the most feared student in the academy. Lyris slowly withdrew her gaze. You should move, she whispered. Humans are respected here. You will damage your reputation. Adrian leaned back slightly in his chair. I'm an engineering student, he said. My reputation is already terrible. Despite herself, Lyris almost smiled. It was the first hint of warmth she had felt in weeks. Over the next few days, Adrian kept sitting beside her. Every meal, every time. At first, Lyris expected it to stop. Perhaps he would grow bored. Perhaps someone would warn him away. But neither happened. Adrian talked constantly about classes, strange alien technologies, and his ongoing attempts to repair a broken drone that the engineering department had nearly given up on. He didn't ask many questions about her. And he never mentioned the rumors. That alone made him different from everyone else. Eventually, curiosity overcame caution. Why? Lyris asked one afternoon. Adrian looked up from adjusting something on his wrist device. Why what? Why sit with me? He considered the question for a moment. Then he shrugged again. Because you looked lonely. The answer was so simple it stunned her. You risk social isolation for that reason? Not really risking much, he said with a grin. Humans are still new here. We're kind of social outliers, anyway. She studied him. You know what people say about me?
Yeah.
You believe it? Adrian leaned forward slightly. I believe rumors are usually exaggerated. They are not. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Adrian paused. For the first time, his expression became serious. What do you mean? Lyris stared down at her hands. The faint glowing lines along her skin pulsed softly, reacting to her emotions. My father commanded armies that destroyed entire civilizations, she said quietly. Valkyrie power is genetic. It passes through bloodlines. And you inherited it? She nodded once. Yes. Adrian leaned back. For a few seconds he said nothing. Then he picked up his fork again. Okay. Lyris looked up sharply. That is all you say? Pretty much. You are not afraid?
He thought about it.
Not unless you plan on conquering the academy cafeteria. Her lips twitched slightly. You're strange. I get that a lot. Weeks passed. Something unexpected began happening. Other students started sitting closer. Not beside Lyris. Not yet, but nearer than before. At first it was subtle. A table one row away. Then another. The empty space around her slowly shrank. It wasn't acceptance. But it wasn't complete isolation either. Adrian's presence changed the atmosphere. Humans had already gained a reputation across the galaxy for being unusually adaptable. They formed alliances easily and often judged individuals rather than entire species. Seeing a human interact with Lyris daily made others question their assumptions. But peace never lasts forever in a place full of pride. The confrontation came during a training exercise. The Academy's combat simulator chamber was designed to test students in controlled environments, holographic battlefields where different species could practice tactics without real casualties. That day's exercise involved team-based strategy. And unfortunately, Lyris ended up on the same team as several students who openly disliked her. One of them, a tall reptilian warrior named Tarkesh, stepped forward before the simulation even began. I refuse to fight beside a Valkyrie war spawn, he announced loudly. Several others nodded in agreement. The instructor sighed. Tarkesh, this is an academic exercise. Valkyrie slaughtered my people's colonies, Tarkesh interrupted. I will not pretend they are trustworthy. His eyes locked on Lyris. Especially her. The room went silent. Lyris felt the familiar weight of humiliation pressing down.
She was used to it by now. Slowly, she stepped back.
I will withdraw from the exercise. Good, Tarkesh said. Before she could leave, another voice spoke. Or, Adrian said, you could stop acting like a child. Every head turned. Adrian leaned casually against the wall, arms folded. Tarkesh's eyes narrowed. This does not concern you, human. Actually, it does, Adrian replied. She's my teammate. Tarkesh gave a cold smile. Then you may share her disgrace. Adrian shrugged.
Cool.
The instructor cleared his throat. The simulation will proceed. All assigned students will participate. Tarkesh glared at Lyris. If she loses control, it will be her responsibility. Adrian gave a small nod. Fair enough. The simulation began. Holographic terrain erupted around them, towering cliffs, ruined structures, and hostile drones programmed to attack from every direction. Teams scattered immediately. Lyris moved cautiously, staying near Adrian. You should not defend me, she said quietly. Too late, he replied. The first wave of drones attacked moments later. Tarkesh rushed forward aggressively and immediately triggered a hidden ambush. Energy blasts rained down. 3 students were pinned behind a shattered wall. Tarkesh roared in frustration. This formation is impossible. Adrian scanned the battlefield quickly. Not impossible. He turned to Lyris. You trust me? She hesitated. Yes. Good. Then do exactly what I say. For the next 30 seconds, Adrian directed movements with precise clarity. He guided teammates into better positions, rerouted defensive fire, and used terrain in ways the others hadn't considered. But the real turning point came when Lyris stepped forward. Her eyes glowed brighter. The lines across her skin flared with silver light. With controlled precision, she unleashed a burst of Valkyrie energy, shattering an entire swarm of drones in seconds. The battlefield fell silent. No one had expected that level of power, yet she didn't lose control. She followed Adrian's instructions perfectly. Within minutes, the team cleared the entire field. Simulation complete. Victory. When the holographic terrain vanished, the room was completely quiet. Students stared at Lyris in shock. Tarkesh stepped forward slowly. His voice was quieter now. You restrained yourself. Lyris met his gaze. I always do. For the first time, doubt appeared in Tarkesh's eyes. Perhaps the rumors had been wrong, or incomplete. Adrian stretched his arms lazily. Well, he said, that went better than expected. A few students laughed nervously. The tension cracked. Something had changed. Weeks later, the cafeteria looked very different. Lyris still sat in the same place. But now the table was no longer empty. Adrian was there, of course. So were 2 engineering students, a quiet insectoid scholar, and eventually even Tarkesh himself, though he pretended it was purely for tactical discussion. Lyris watched the room carefully. The silence around her had vanished. Students still looked. But now it wasn't fear alone. Sometimes it was curiosity. Sometimes respect. Sometimes even friendship. She turned to Adrian. You altered my entire life with a single decision. Adrian looked confused. What decision? The day you sat beside me. He shrugged. Seemed like the obvious thing to do. Lyris shook her head slowly. Not to anyone else. She looked across the hall. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she no longer felt invisible or feared beyond redemption. One human had ignored a label, and because of that, an entire room had learned to see her differently. Adrian raised his drink. To sitting in the right chair. Lyris raised hers as well. To humans, she said softly. And across the vast galaxy, a species once known only for war had just taken its first quiet step toward something new.